Hey guys, so this is VA here, and I wanted to record this video so I could talk to you guys about the plans I had initially wanted to use for Fate Apocrabridged and the entirety of Season 2, along with how I was going to end the show. I know that a lot of you wanted to see how the show was initially going to be carried out through the end, and I wish I could have finished it the way I wanted to, but for a lot of reasons, which I will go through partially at the end of this video, but more so in another video that I haven't recorded yet, I just have to stop abridging, I have to stop making this show, and I have to stop trying to keep myself in this corner of content creation when I know it's not particularly healthy for me. But in this video, I plan to go over every single last bit of unused ideas and script bits and everything else that I can so that you guys get to see what I would have wanted the rest of the show to look like, and maybe a couple peeks into pieces of it I'd already thought of and already made. So first of all, the entirety of the script of episode 4 is going to be linked down in the description of this video, along with any other miscellaneous bits of script that I find for later bits in the show. You might have already seen pieces of episode 4 through both the coffee preview and also the finale one-shot that I posted recently, although the finale one-shot is currently in the process of being appealed from a copyright strike. Presumably within a few weeks it should be updated as to whether or not it stays down or goes back up. I'm pretty confident that we're going to win and I'm going to get the video back on my channel because just of the history behind every copyright strike I've gotten on this channel in the past. But at the moment it's yet undetermined, so I don't want to say for certain. But if you want to watch it anyway, there is a link in my community tab, and also there's going to be a link in the description to the Daily Motion backup of that video. But basically, the bits of episode 4 that got completed were just a scene of Segan's surge in the beginning of it, which was supposed to take place, I believe, directly after the opening. And also there was the champion bit, which is meant to close out the episode and also close out the season. To give any more details on that I couldn't before, so the scene directly preceding champion was supposed to be the scene where Fran uses Blasted Tree and everything goes to hell because, you know, she doesn't actually manage to kill Mordred, and everyone is still waiting for Sieg to get back up, and they think he's dead at that moment. That scene with Fran and Mordred about to explode was going to feature the Guardians of the Galaxy song for this episode. That was going to be The Chain by Fleetwood Mac. For those of you guys who don't know this, I try to use at least one song from Guardians of the Galaxy in every single episode of Fate Apocrabridged. Episode 1 featured Cherry Bomb by the Runaways, Episode 2 featured Ooh Child by the Five Stair Steps, alongside Bring It On Home to Me by Sam Cooke. Episode 3 had Escape, the Pina Colada song. I forget exactly who made that one. Along with, again, it had Bring It On Home to Me by Sam Cooke during the scene with Gord. I think maybe I used one more Guardian song in episode 3, but I can't remember which one it was or where. Oh, it was Hooked on a Feeling by Blue Swede in the earlier part of it during the Chiron and Astolfo interrogation with Salonica. But back to the point. So yes, the Guardian song in episode 4 was meant to be The Chain by Fleetwood Mac, and that was going to play during the scene where Fran explodes. Then I was going to reprise The Chain again in the scene directly following it, but instead of using the Fleetwood Mac version, I was going to be using this cut by Welshly Arms, which I'm going to have linked in the description. And I'm pretty sure I got the artist's name right just now, but if I didn't, I will correct myself on screen. That is the cut of it you see in the scene directly preceding when Sieg gets back up as Siegfried in the Champion one-shot. And the whole point of reprising it is supposed to be like a hint that Fran is the reason why Sieg was able to get back up. But more so than that, I also wanted The Chain to be a recurring song in the entire show from this point forward. I'm sure some of you guys noticed that there was a Building Fate Apocrabridged soundtrack that I was working on. The first of which featuring Havenadian for Life and Coffee, and the second of which featuring Shadybox for the Thanks for the Memories cover. The Thanks for the Memories cover in particular was meant to be a multi-character in-character cover in the middle of the episode during one of the big battles where, like, Atalanta's firing Phoebus Catastrophe, at Spartacus, and Vlad and Karna are dueling, and Fran is fighting a bunch of Dragon Tooth warriors. But I was also going to, later in the series, if I had had the opportunity, have several, like, just small bits of music, kind of like Life and Coffee, remixing not only pieces of the soundtrack, but also of the insert songs that I had chosen. I probably would have done a bit of Back from the Dead, which was going to be the second OP, featured at the end of the Champion one-shot. I was also probably going to do I Want to Live at some points, and definitely, absolutely, The Chain. The Chain was also going to come back as in the form of the 3 Days Grace cover at the very end of the series, which is going to be during the big battle between Amaxa and Sieg, but I'll get more into that as I get later in the video. Back to episode 4, there wasn't really a whole lot besides just, the scenes that I've already said are going to be linked in the description that I can cover in broad strokes in this part of the video. But the one thing that was going to also be the case is that the end title card. I'm sure you guys remember that in most episodes of the series, I've had a little typewriter shtick where after the OP plays, the title of the episode comes on screen one letter at a time with some typewriter sound effects. Episode 1, Clarent Call. Episode 2, Balmung Birth. Episode 3, Das Debut. Episode 4 was going to be Blasted Berserker, but I wasn't going to show the title of the episode until the end of the champion scene, where rather than saying finale champion, I was going to have episode 4, Blasted Berserker. And then the second card wasn't going to be It's Been a Wild Ride or whatever I put there. It was going to be See You in Season 2. Back from the Dead was going to play right after that, which it did in the Champion one-shot, but again, some of you might not have seen that because it's been blocked. Back from the Dead was going to play right after that. It was the Season 2 OP of the series, and it's by far one of my favorite pieces of AMV-esque content I've ever gotten to work on. Whereas in I Want to Live, I focused mainly on, the motif fire and having each shot bleed into the next. In Back from the Dead, I tried to focus on a much more high-energy, cut-to-cut-to-cut AMV style, while still incorporating a lot of the thematic elements of the first OP, especially in the last bit where it cuts between characters' faces, and then eventually goes over to Siegfried at the very end, using Balmung, which goes straight into the title card, while the card that represents Ruler comes right into play at the end of that little bit where the cards are scrolling around the route. Point is, I put a lot of effort into that OP, and I want it to be back up. I'm not going to post it separately, but it is going to stay at the end of the Champion one-shot. If Champion, by some weird chance, doesn't come back up, I will post that separately, but I'm hoping that I won't have to. I love that OP. I was going to use that for the entire second season, and we'll get back more to that as I go through the rest of the series. Episode 5 was going to pick up right after the champion scene. So this is when Mordred and Sieg are both really beat up, and basically Sieg is starting to transform back from Siegfried into his old self again. Editing this in later because I forgot to say it. There was also going to be a bit where Mordred cuts off Selenica's head in the fight between, Sieg, Astolfo, Mordred, and Selenica. And there was going to be a comment that Mordred makes. She says, "You sound like my dad," because Selenica and Artoria in this universe were voiced by the same actress, Ali Floro, but we never got there, so it didn't end up happening. This was also going to feature things like, Ruler fighting Spartacus, and Achilles and Chiron having the end of their duel, and those kind of things all going on at the same time. Effectively, things were going to build to a big, big finish there. And right after the tension started to cool down, something was going to happen with Fran, who instead of being actually dead in this version of the series, is going to end up being a voice in Sieg's head. Kind of like how Piccolo and Nail have that whole dynamic going on, and also how Jean and Letitia have that in this series. Fran was going to introduce herself to Sieg as Eve, which is something she would have revealed to Callus during the Blasted Tree scene. Her last words would have ended up being, "By the way, Callus, I want to tell you something. My real name, it's Eve." And then her explosion happens. And then when she introduces herself to Sieg, because Sieg's never met her, he doesn't know her as Fran, he doesn't know her as Frankenstein, any of that, he introduces she introduces herself as Eve instead. I was then going to have episode 5 go up until the point when everyone's fighting Avisabron and that big atom golem that he makes. And I was going to have the climax of the episode be when Sieg and Mordred do their dual Saber Noble Phantasm to knock out the big golem and kill Avisabron for good. That was going to be the end of episode 5. I didn't have a whole lot of plans for the stuff in between. Just mainly that I was going to cover, Sieg finding out that Fran's in his head, and all that stuff going on. And then the Jack arc was going to take place after this. I'm sure a lot of you guys noticed that I skipped Jack earlier in the show, and the reason why is because I wanted all of Jack's content to be put into one arc. There's a lot of reasons why I wanted to do it this way. For one thing, photoshopping Jack's costume to be, safe for work was not exactly an easy task, and I wanted every bit of that I had to do to be basically put into one section of the show. She was going to have a scene where she's surveying the battlefield in episode 4, but she wasn't going to play a major role in it. And then episode 6 was going to be the beginning of the Jack arc altogether. And the next bit, the reason why I wanted everything to all be in one, is because I was trying to work on Cowless's arc. Cowless is one of my favorite characters from Fate Apocrypha. I feel like he's horribly underused. As a concept, I feel like he could have been one of the best characters in the show. I feel that Cowless had a lot of potential, and one of the ways in which I wanted to tap into it was by really playing into his feeling that he could have stopped Fran's death, he could have done more to help her, and he feels inadequate as a master for having allowed her to self-destruct without any hope of winning against Mordred. I was going to have this animation sequence that I had Narmak 13 work on, and yes, that Narmak 13, the one who did the SpongeBob animation stuff, the SpongeBob anime OPs, and eventually the SpongeBob anime episode. I am extremely grateful that I got him to work on a little cut for episode 6 of the series. I'm sorry to him that it never came to fruition, but I'll play it on screen for you guys now. The point of the scene was just to show Cowless waking up from a nightmare where he and his dad are talking about his sister, Fiore, who I was also going to work on a lot in this particular part of the show. But I never got to go that far. The whole point of the dream sequence was to show that Cowless is connecting the previous arc of his life, where he and Fiore were grappling with, wanting to be normal kids, whereas, Cowless didn't really have any magic potential, but Fiore did, despite the fact that physical recovery would require her to kind of just neglect the entirety of wanting to be a mage. That was sort of balanced against this idea that Fran giving it her all and doing the things that she wanted to do by, fighting and trying to save Cowless and her friends in the Holy Grail War, ended up getting her killed because of Blasted Tree. And I was going to have this dream sequence basically be Cowless comparing his sister to Fran and being like, I don't want to lose anyone like that ever again. This would come to a point in the Jack arc when Fiore is, fighting Kyrie and she almost dies, but then Cowless swoops in and recklessly, because he doesn't have a servant there, saves her. Now, in the original series, I never felt that it really made all that much sense that Cowless would be, on his own, despite the fact that Fran is there still. But in this version, I would have tried to make more sense of that by having it be that literally Fran is dead at this point, and Cowless coming in to save Fiore was him sort of being in denial of the fact that he's not in this Grail War. This is where he was supposed to stop participating, but he can't make himself do that because he's extremely protective of Fiore. He doesn't want her to meet the same fate that Fran did. This was what I really wanted to work on with their character dynamic, because I felt there was so much that could have been worked on between Fiore and Cowless that could have made them really great characters. But I didn't really see a whole lot of that work in the original series, which is partly because the cast was so bloated and there wasn't enough time to focus on everybody, especially with the time constraints that the series needed to be worked on. But moving on from that, other stuff I had planned for the Jack arc, I was going to try and put a bit more effort into making Atalanta an understandable and fleshed out character. One thing I was going to do was to try and develop Jack's, influence on the characters in the show, and I was going to try and make it so that Jack could mimic other characters' voices. And I didn't write any scenes surrounding this because I never got to it, but one of the dynamics I wanted to play with is having Jack mimic Atalanta's voice and Atalanta's parents' voices, and different characters like Medea, who might have been able to get into her head and start driving this insanity that you see later in the show out of Atalanta. This is kind of how I wanted the manipulation to work there, because I felt that in the original series, just having Atalanta shoot Jack and then immediately regret it was kind of a weak motivation for her losing it the way that she did. And I really wanted to put in some more legwork to develop that bit before I got to it. Aside from that, the Jack arc would have played out largely the same as it would have otherwise. A couple of insert songs I had planned for this period of time. I was going to use Count the Teeth or Phantom by Nate Wants to Battle, because both of those songs I felt really represent Jack's kind of attitude and the tone of the series pretty well at that point. And I thought it would have been neat to incorporate more Nate music, because I love his music. But I hadn't gotten a chance to use it in almost anything yet. This would have been my first real opportunity to do that more. This probably would have taken us into the end of episode 7 with the death of Jack and the death of Reka and all that. There were probably other miscellaneous moments I would have tried to work on. One particular insert song I was considering was Leave Out All the Rest. Not the Linkin Park cover, but actually the Boyce Avenue cover. I might have used Linkin Park. It just would have depended on what fit the situation better. I felt that would be a nice little requiem song just to show, that Jack's death isn't a universally good thing. It's not like they just slayed a monster. Jack is a tragedy in and of herself, and that should be explored more. The next bit of the series was going to be building up to the major arc of the series. So this was going to be episode 8, which was going to be basically everything in between the end of the Jack arc and the build-up to the big plane fight in the sky. It was just going to focus on a lot more small character stuff, like, the diner scene between Mordred and Sieg, and the scene where Mordred and Kyrie are decorating their plane, or the stuff with, Cowlus taking the magic sigil, the magic crest. Okay, so sorry about the possible sudden camera changes here. I had to leave and go do something. I had to take my phone with me, so this camera angle might be a little different than it was before, but resuming. This episode would have covered basically all of that stuff, including, the one thing I got cut off when I was saying was Chiron getting recontracted to Cowlus instead of Fiore. And then this would have culminated at the end of the episode with the big, giant armada of planes all, going toward the floating gardens of Babylon, the hanging gardens of Babylon, rather. And the song that played to close off that moment would have been When the Wild Wind Blows by Iron Maiden, which is twofold, because A, it's a Fate Zero reference, because I love Fate Zero, and I'm very glad I got to participate in it. Go watch episode 5 if you haven't already. And B, it's also the fact that, actually, believe it or not, episode 2 of Fate Apocrabridged featured Achilles whistling that song. I'm actually the one who recorded my own whistle for that. It was just sort of like, something like that. And I was really excited to feature that song. I've talked about this in my comment sections a little bit before. I'm a very musically motivated person, and a lot of the way I visualize these last few episodes was by the insert songs I'd initially planned to use. The next few insert songs were all very important to me. The next one planned to use was, In the End, featuring, I think her name is pronounced Fleury Young. I could be wrong about that. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. I forget who the guy who recorded that was, but I'll put his name on the screen. That was a really, really dope remix of In the End that I found from this Marvel MCU video when the trailers for Endgame were still pretty much new and the movie hadn't come out yet. And I was really excited to use that in the series. It was mainly going to play during the beginning of the Sieg Karna fight and during the bulk of the Ruler Atalanta fight. Then another thing I was planning on doing was the use of the Fallout Boy song Immortals during the Chiron Achilles fight. And I wasn't totally set on it. I wanted to kind of see how it played out. But I was really, I liked the idea of that because, Immortals is a very, it's a Greek, Roman kind of concept, very much, especially with, demigods, and the fact that Chiron and Achilles have both flirted with immortality before, so I thought it'd be a nice little inclusion. I was also going to use No Boundaries by Adam Lambert during the scene where Sieg and Astolfo finally win against Karna. Very specifically, the reason I was going to use that song is because it's one I really linked to my grandfather. And if you listen to the lyrics and just the instruments chosen for the song, I really, really enjoyed the atmosphere created, especially in context because of the way that Sieg is facing up against this impossible challenge that even the original Siegfried didn't beat. And then he, through the bonds he's created and through the power that he's earned for himself, wins against Karna. It was also sort of a existential kind of fight for him in my mind. Since, Sieg has gone into every fight up to this point knowing only a little bit about his own motivations and why he wants to fight. And this was going to be the moment when he realizes it's okay to do things just because they make it more interesting to live. Because that's the whole theme of Fate Apocrypha, is it's a show about life. It's a show about the meaning of life, how you seek out life, and how you live your life. So I wanted these last few episodes to really touch on those themes. Moving into the ending of the episode, I was going to have... actually, let's backtrack a little bit, because there's one thing I forgot to cover. During the Atalanta and Jean fight, there was a monologue I had written for Atalanta, which I'll go ahead and throw on screen right now. But the idea of it is that there's a reason why I cast Atalanta and Jean with the same actress, Lennon Drake. And the reason why is because I wanted later on, for this point of comparison between the two, they sound incredibly similar, to be something that really, really bothers Atalanta, especially after she's already, been sort of influenced by Jack and started to lose it a little bit, and then she remembers, shit, this one has my voice. And that was going to be kind of what drove her really lose it when she used her Noble Phantasm against Jean. But aside from that, moving into the next episode of the series, or not the next episode, the end of that episode, I should say, I was going to have Atalanta and Achilles have their final resolution. I'll have the bits I had scripted for that on screen when I talk about this. But I was going to have that end with Wake Me Up When September Ends by Green Day. One, because Atalanta and Achilles are dorks. And two, because I really, really love that song. I feel like it's a great memorial kind of song. And I was going to close out the episode by playing that song and having a little memorial to my grandfather at the end of that episode. It was going to be a very personal thing. It's part of why I wanted to use No Boundaries. But that was a big thing for me. There was also going to be the next episode, episode 9, which focused... Actually, episode 9 is what I just described. Episode 10 was going to be the finale of the series. The first half of it was going to focus on Mordred and Kyrie fighting Semidamis. This is going to feature 2 insert songs in particular, mainly This Life Is Mine from the Ruby soundtrack, which I picked because I also picked Bad Luck Charm from from Volume 4 of Ruby for episode 3, and I thought it'd be nice to call back to that. Also, the song is very fitting for Mordred. And Father and Son by Cat Stevens, which is going to be the big Guardian song for that episode. After that, I was going to go into the bits with Sieg and Jean. Miscellaneous plans for that. For one thing, I was going to voice Gildan Hay with the same voice that I got to use for episode 5 of Fate Zero. Again, watch that if you haven't already, it's really good. Aside from that, I was going to use I Want to Live during the big moment when Jean turns the La Pucelle on Shiro and they have their last confrontation. And I was also going to use several insert songs for the later parts of that episode. For Sieg versus Amaxa, I had a couple of different ideas, none of which really solidified. For one thing, I was planning on using The Chain by Fleetwood Mac, but specifically the 3 Days Grace cover of it during the big fight between them at the very end when Sieg goes blasted tree and explodes. Since that's a Fran callback, and the only reason he competes in that fight is because of Fran. But the first half of the fight, I debated between featuring Kakuse from the Promare soundtrack and The Wrecked and the Worried by Nate Wants to Battle. Because both of those are great songs, both of them have their own thematic elements in that fight. The Wrecked and the Worried was a good English insert song if I wanted to pick one. And Kakuse, specifically because of its connotations with Leo Fotia from Promare, it has some fitting elements for that scene. And also, musically, it worked really well. But I wasn't sure which I wanted to use particularly, so just leave it up in the air which one you think I should have. After that, there actually is a bit of a scripted section where I have Sieg going through his plan. To touch on something real quick, if you've seen the Champion one-shot, you might remember the line where Siegfried says something along the lines of, "Remember this place." The reason why I had him say that is because I wanted to build early on up to the idea of Sieg taking the Grail to the reverse side of the world, which is something that was, not really explained all that well in the main series. It just sort of came out of nowhere. I wanted to spend some more time developing that idea and possibly justifying a bit better why Sieg, A, knows about this place, B, can reach it, and C, thinks to go there. I wanted to have Justice in the Grail's internal world also play a bit of a role in the series for Amaxa, but I didn't have that developed a whole lot, so I'll just leave that on the table because I didn't get anywhere with it. There is one bit I wanted to do, which is a fun callback. I wanted to have Sieg, when he's about to go transform into Fafnir, I wanted to turn to Astolfo and be like, well, I'm about to do something stupid. Sort of like how Siegfried did in episode 2. Beyond that, I wanted the last insert song of the whole show to be a cover of Bring It On Home to Me. Not the original, but rather a Tony Lucca cover, which is actually performed live, and again, I'll link off to that in both the description and if there's enough room for it in the cards. I think that cover would have been a great way to close out some of the remaining threads of the series, and the last scene of the show would have been Sieg and Jean meeting up in the reverse side of the world at the very end of everything, and I initially didn't have any plans to put Dakota in there, but did start planning for that after the release of Singed Bread, because I got a comment on that video saying, oh wait, is Sieg gonna meet Dakota? And then I'm like, shit, now I have to do that. But obviously it didn't work out that way, so it never really happened. I still think I would have done that now, all things considered, but it's not going to come to fruition, so I might as well just at least tell you guys about it. And then following up to that, it's going to be like, Jean confesses her love to Sieg, the way she does in the original series, and it was just going to be like, I love you. Ha, me too. Wait, what? And then it was going to cut to the credits. The credits were going to feature Anthem by Zebrahead as the playing song in the background. And if anyone here has heard Anthem by Zebrahead, you know exactly why I picked that for this series about life. There's a lot of lyrics in there that fit very directly to the events in the series. Like, the lead up to the chorus in the song is, get up, let the good times roll. Get up, take my heart and my soul. Which, you could very easily interpret that as Sieg taking Siegfried's heart and Fran's soul. I love that song so much. It would have been a great way to close out the series, I think. And if you haven't heard it, do yourself a favor, listen to it. It's amazing. Zebra has some really good highlights every now and then. But that was going to be it. And those were my plans for Fate Apocrabridged. I'm sure there's one or two things I didn't touch on. And if anyone asks any questions in the comments about the series, I'd be more than happy to answer. I have to say a massive thank you to so many people who helped me make this series. On the voice cast, mainly, I'm going to have everybody's name scrolling past here. And I even want to thank just the viewers of this series over the years and the people who believed in me to get this far. I especially want to thank people like Yar Shien, who helped me co-write the early episodes of the series, Havenadian, who helped me edit parts of the series, and Atomic Catacombs, who did the same thing. He edited the preview for the coffee scene before I got to it. There's a lot of people who did a lot of good work for this show, and I want them to know how much they meant to me. I want them to know how much their contribution means to me. I also want to thank all my patrons, namely right now, The Eighth Stinks, Video Gamer 75, and Micklesnorf, my brother Michael. Thanks, dude. All of you have contributed massively to my ability to continue doing this. And even those whose names I didn't mention just now, I mean, there are some patrons who's been around for literally since almost the beginning. And I think they found me because of Fate Apocrabridged. These are people, I think Joshua Smith still pledges, and he's been doing that since near the beginning. There are a lot of people who've pledged in the Xwire tiers or in the page tiers who maybe not donate a whole lot per month, but they've been doing it for so long at this point that their contribution is still massive either way. And I have to thank you guys for all the patience and time and love you've shown me during this process. I also have to thank people who helped me work on the production side of things. This includes every single cast member the series has ever known. Again, I can't possibly list off all your names off the top of my head right now, but I will have them on screen either right now or before when I mentioned it. Beyond that, I also just want to say quickly why I'm leaving the abridging community and the abridging scene in general. Without going too deeply into a lot of things I'd rather save for a longer video, abridging is not a creator-friendly experience. It hasn't been for a long time. It's certainly not now. I've gotten copyright strikes on my channel because of my anime content and abridged videos so many times at this point. I mean, there was episode 1 of Fate Apocrabridged, which then directly resulted in me getting another strike on Blue X's Abridged episode 5. There's episode 2 of Fate Apocrabridged, and the champion scene, and Core of Shuremia and Oath Under Snow, and the Evangelion video, which I can't remember if that got striked or if it just got a claim and blocked for a little while, but it was one of the two. And there's everything great about Oath Under Snow, and a lot of my anime content that I pour hours upon hours upon hours of my time into has gotten treated like very badly by YouTube. And it's resulted in me, I mean, it's not that I'm not going to make any more anime content ever, because I do like making anime videos every now and then, but I've got to be realistic about what I can continue to do in a professional capacity while working on YouTube. And YouTube's copyright guidelines and the way that their system works and how big of a blockhead Sony Music Entertainment can be some of the time, it's gotten me to realize that this is not the professional form of content creation that I want to occupy myself with for the rest of my career. I've always wanted to do audiobooks, I've always wanted to write, and I feel that Equilibrium, my first original series, the prologue of which is already up, and Chapter 1 will be up soon, Chapter 2 probably by the end of the month. That's the kind of stuff I want to do from now on. And I'm going to be doing other content in the meantime. I'm probably going to do a few more Smash videos because people seem to like the Waluigi video I uploaded before. But I have to be honest with you guys and say that abridging doesn't really want us here, or YouTube doesn't really want abridgers here. More so than that, I also fell out of the community hard. And it's not like I don't, I'm still on good speaking terms with the most of the people I've worked with over the years. Um, and I still consider a lot of people in Abridging to be my close friends. But the problem is that there are so many times I've been burned by this community and people that I've given a chance and worked with. Um, Rod Castor and Jordan Bond are two very prominent examples of people I've worked with in the past who they turned out to be very different people than I thought they were. Um, my experiences working with Fat Dog Studios really burned me out in ways that I cannot describe in this short a period of time. Um, and I'm not going to go too heavily into detail on this stuff because I feel like some of this stuff shouldn't even be talked about in public in general in detail, but some of it should just be saved for my next video. But in general, the times that the community has stabbed other members of the community in the back, the times that community discourse has eroded because of the attitudes of a few specific people, and the times that I have had my content so horribly mistreated by the platform I created for, have all these things have all made me want to produce content less. And one thing I've spent a lot of my time doing as an adult now in 2019 and this year is trying to figure out the things I need to move on from, hang-ups that I need to let go of, and things in my past that I can forgive and move on from. And this is one of them. This, abridging, this is one of the things that's holding me back. Because as fun as I find writing these scripts sometimes, as much of a blast as things like Tree Skyline Extended or Singed Bread were, I still feel like these are not the rule, they are the exception. And my experiences working on Fate Apocrabridged taught me that even a show I am truly passionate about, a show that I am truly 100% on board with, is something that holds the potential to become corrosive over time if it's still attached to things like this. And that taught me the last lesson I need to learn in abridging, and that is that when you don't have control over your own creative vision for a number of reasons, it erodes your motivation to continue making that thing. And that's why, whereas I'm excited to work on Equilibrium and very happy to be working on original content, I may not be happy about leaving behind abridging because I loved abridging for a long time, but I'm not going to mourn it the same way that I would mourn it if it was an original baby that I had to let go of. I'm incredibly grateful for the things Fate Apocrabridged has done to my channel. I am pretty much entirely in the debt of this series for creating my currently 20,000 plus subscriber base. Because I had less than 2,100 subs, or maybe it was about 2,100, when I made episode 1 of the series, and from there my channel just exploded. But I have to be realistic about what I can do. I have to be realistic about what I should do with my platform and with my time. I'm very grateful for you guys watching the content up to now. I understand if original content isn't what you guys came here for, and if you're not going to stick around past the Champion one-shot, because that is in all likelihood the very last piece of Fate Apocrabridged that will ever go up. But I still want to say thank you to everyone who both contributed to the show and enjoyed it. And I hope you guys have a wonderful night.